All right, we are live, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Lake County. I'm your host, David Rich. Very, very sorry about the lighting in here. My remote control to turn off the light, it's not working. So I have like this kind of angelic glow behind me. Don't be deceived. I'm not close to being an angel, but that's the best I could do. But it's more important that we can see and hear our guest, Jonathan Dean. Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm good, David. Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
Good. Thank you so much for coming on. Election. We are in an election cycle, and it's hot and heavy in all sorts of areas of the country: local, county, state, federal. You betcha. It's a big
Yeah,
year. It's a big year.
yeah.
So thank you for coming on. I appreciate that. So I just want to start it off with asking, like, how did you get involved in politics and why?
So this is my first political race.
Okay.
I'm not a politician. I've always been an activist and active in kind of local political organizations. And even running for the Senate seat was not on my bingo card a year ago. I am a card carrying Democrat, and I, like most Democrats, was upset about the outcome of the 2024 elections. But even then, it wasn't like I was like looking for a seat to run for. But what happened was I paid attention to the first few months of Trump 2.0, and I was scared for my kids' futures about what I was seeing
Yeah.
Trump and the Republicans do. And I was even more scared that I felt like the lack of the there was really a lack of an effective Democratic Party response
That's true.
to Trump and Republicans. And so just to cope personally, I started jotting down opportunities that I thought that the Democrats were missing. And winter turned to spring and spring turned to summer. And I turned to my wife and I said, I think I have like a political strategy here. And I
Oh,
thought about it for a month or two and ultimately decided that if I felt like I had a contribution to give to the party and to the country, then I should try to do that. And here I am.
and here we are. All right, Jonathan
Yeah,
Dean. So you're
yeah.
running for U.S. Senate for Illinois. So you're going straight to the top there.
Statewide, yeah. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Statewide,
So,
that's right. Yeah.
but at the
Um,
federal level, not the state level.
correct. Yeah. Statewide race. This is the race to replace or the race for Dick Durbin's Senate seat. Yes.
Oh, yeah. That's right. He's not. He's
Yes.
done, isn't he? Yeah, okay.
He's retiring, and so it's an open seat, and there are 10 people on the ballot. There are some more establishment politicians, and then there's some more newcomer folks like myself. Yes.
Okay. So, like, I do know that the Democratic Party in the House has they have the New Democrat Caucus and they have the Progressive Democrat Caucus. I guess those are quite distinct. Which one would you put yourself in?
I would say I'm solidly a progressive.
Okay.
I believe in economic reform. I
Mhm.
believe in renewable energy. I
Mhm.
believe in prioritizing 99% of us instead of the top 1%.
Well,
From
then,
my perspective, affordability, everybody's heard the term affordability there. And we're all feeling it, all of Illinois' households are feeling it. My family's feeling it. I know other people are feeling it. But then I go a little bit deeper and I ask, what is it that has made life so unaffordable? And for 40 years, we've been living under an economic structure that's nicknamed trickle down economics. It was
right.
introduced by Ronald Reagan
Yep.
on the theory that if we redistribute more money to rich people and wealthy corporations, then that wealth will then magically trickle down to the rest of us. And I think that we're all learning that that is not happening, that wealth is not coming back to us. And I can cite numerous examples, but one that I just saw last night was that Walmart hit a $1 trillion valuation. Their
Wow.
valuation, yeah, has skyrocketed in the past 10 years. Um, but in the past 10 years, they haven't paid their employees anymore. They're not paying
They're
their
known
employees
for not
anymore.
paying
Yeah,
their employees very well.
yeah, yeah. So
Union busting and all sorts of nonsense. I agree. Okay.
that's just that's just kind of one example, but I would say that you know taking a real hard look and reforming the economic structure that we're living under is one of my highest priorities.
Interesting. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, it turns out, folks, it's not a hoax. Affordability is actually very important. in
True.
any economic system. Okay.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that's his go-to dismissal. Oh, it's a hoax. And everybody else,
Yeah.
even
And you know what?
The Republicans were like, no, it's what are you talking about?
Yeah. I mean, and you know, I think a lot of people think that people who run for office have some kind of like leg up or something like that um, on everyone else. And that's, that may be the case with like other politicians, but that's not me. I am a lawyer. I went to law school and
Oh,
I've been a
neat.
veteran litigator for the past 13 years. More recently, I wanted to transition to moving into the solar energy business. And so about 3 or so years ago, I started a solar energy company, and we're just
Oh,
starting to develop our first two projects here in Illinois. They're 5 megawatt community solar gardens. It's really, really very exciting. And I'm also, again, my background, I'm an activist for survivors of childhood sexual abuse, and also myself a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. And I say that because one, it's in the news a lot lately with all this Epstein file
right.
stuff. But two, and I think more importantly, you know, I didn't overcome all of this adversity in my personal life, fighting abusers and liars and gaslighters in court and in my everyday life, only to live under a government that I feel like is lying to us on a daily basis.
Easily.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's tough stuff. And we talked before the show about having another show and having you on to discuss all sorts of different things. And now that you
Yeah.
mentioned that you have a solar panel company, I would love to. I'm a certified in horticulture, organic farming, and that kind of thing. I do gardening as a profession when in the on seasons. I was actually a member of the Green Party for a long time. I'm not anymore. I'm just kind of flying solo. The environment is extremely important to me. So maybe we could also have you back on. We can talk about like renewable energy sources, alternative energy options, stuff like that. Because of course, climate change is a hoax too. Um,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know,
no, absolutely. I'd love to do that. But, if I could just say one thing about that, I mean, I think that, renewable energy is key to the affordability agenda, making life more affordable because it's literally renewable. It comes from the wind, it comes from the sun. There's stories in certain places that are heavily populated by solar panels, and you get a really hot summer day. The price of energy actually goes negative
right.
because those panels are cooking, they're producing
Yeah.
just tons of energy. And if we heavily invest in renewable energy, not only is it going to be more reliable than the energy that we currently have, but the cost of our energy, that what we're all paying for electricity, is going to plummet.
Yeah, no, for sure. I've read some of the data on that too, and I that's what I read. Um, so that's good stuff for sure. We'll have to be in touch about that because that's very important stuff. Agriculture is a big deal, especially in Illinois. So real quick, just a real, and I want to get to the bigger issues, but like agriculture. So Illinois is called the prairie state, right? So
Yeah.
back in the day, it was like 65% prairie land. You know how much prairie land is left?
True prairie land that has not been converted to agricultural or like other use. It's my understanding it's extremely little.
It's 0.1%.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nuts. So okay,
It's
so we
basically
got
it's basically like the land that's preserved probably by the Forest Service, right?
yeah, untouched
Yeah.
land is how you yeah, development is
Yeah.
yeah. Our modern day agricultural practices are not great. So anyway, okay, cool. So let's talk about your campaign, your policy positions and stuff like that. I guess if you want to start big, or start, I'm sorry, big, start wherever you like with that. What concerns you the most?
So, we already talked about, looking at the economic structure and
Mhm.
changing, from this economic structure of trickle down economics to something that makes a lot more sense for the 99% of us. That involves raising marginal tax rates on the highest earners and corporations in a way that, you know, doesn't hurt the competitiveness of these companies or the ability of rich people to start new businesses, but in a way that just brings in more revenue so that we can continue to build like in this country. I think we can
Sorry.
all that's okay. We can all see now that the government is not effective at building the way that it once was. If we look at the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, the government built the interstate highway system. Built build trains, rails.
Mhm,
Is we
mhm.
don't see those kind of improvements anymore, and it's because we don't have the tax base in order to take on big projects like that. Um, I think the next most important issue under the whole affordability umbrella is the cost of home ownership.
No, it's huge.
Um, it's so huge. I mean, young people can't afford homes. I could barely afford a home. What I talk about on the campaign trail is, my parents in the mid 1980s, they were 26 when they bought their first home. I
Right.
was 37 when I bought my first home, and really I was probably only able to do it because it was during summer of 2020, um, when interest rates were very low, and I was lucky enough to buy my home before the rush on homes started. So does that mean that my kids are not going to be able to buy a home till they're 48? A little bit
Right.
of an unscientific
It just goes
measurement,
up a
but it's
decade every generation like that, like on pace as it is now. Yeah, you're right. That's right.
and then are they going to have to work till their mid 70s to pay off a 30-year mortgage? So it's like we're getting to these affordability issues are getting to a place where they're basically threatening to eliminate the middle class, and so you kind of have a permanent underclass and then a 1% of extremely wealthy individuals and corporations.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's called a K economy.
Yeah,
Um, it's the rich get richer and the poor get poorer.
yeah,
That kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah. And we've got to balance that out. If you look back before the 1980s, we had an effective marginal tax rate that was more than double what it is now for the top 1%.
Oh, easily. Yeah.
Yeah. And, at that point in time, America was also like an upward escalator for most people. There was a lot of upward advancement to be had. There was a lot of economic growth that happened, but
Mhm.
it was distributed to everybody. Now it's not being distributed to everybody. And, another example of that, and this is really, I feel like, proof that trickle down economics does not work, is that we've seen, skyrocketing economic growth since the 1980s, but we've seen very little wage growth. And if
Oh,
trickle
absolutely.
down economics worked, we would see at least some proportionate wage growth to economic growth, but we're not seeing that at all. You know, the chart of that is basically like a triangle where you got economic growth like this and then wages like this, and there's no relationship.
It's massively disproportionate. There is no mathematical ratio. Like
Yeah,
it's so vast you can't even draw one.
yeah,
Like a comparison
yeah,
between the two. It's nuts.
yeah.
Yeah, no, that's 100% true. Absolutely correct. Um, what kind of ideas do you have concerning that? Like you get into Congress, what are you gonna like? Here's a good idea to get this back to like get rid of trickle down economics. Like, well, what does that look like?
I think what we're dealing with right now is we've had this 40 years where there's been this massive growth of corporate wealth and corporate power, and we're getting to the point where corporations have become so consolidated we don't really have a lot of competition left in the economy.
Right.
I was raised, and I'm sure David, you were raised too, with the notion of thinking like in America anybody can start a small business and be successful.
Yes.
But the areas, the markets where people could actually start small businesses are almost non-existent nowadays. It's like, when you think of the Walmarts and Targets and Amazons of the world, you know, anybody trying to open up any kind of shop to sell anything is, it's a massively uphill battle. So
Mhm.
what I think we need to talk about is the amount of corporate power and corporate wealth in this country. And there's other senators and representatives in Congress that talk about this. Bernie Sanders, Chris Murphy has talked about this, AOC talks about this, Elizabeth Warren talks about this. And so we need to get more people in Congress who are more progressive like that, who are more willing to take on corporate power and talk about it in a way that starts to move the political center of the Democratic Party to a more progressive economic platform.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it's and that's you talk about like what can I do? And a lot of times when I get those kind of questions, David, my first response is, well, we need to talk about it. Right now, like barely anybody is talking about it. If you don't talk about it and you don't have messages about it, then you're certainly not going to get people concerned about it. You're certainly not going to get people behind you. And you're certainly not going to build political power in order to do those things. So the first step is to talk about it. And you know what? I don't think it should really be that hard because people are feeling pain, and we can go around, we could talk about affordability all day long, but if we don't talk about the underlying causes of affordability, then voters are going to see through that really quickly.
100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I mean economics, like the economy is always the biggest issue, always.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you have like housing is a huge, wallop on people's wallets, and then healthcare. So why don't we talk about healthcare? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I view healthcare as a continuum. I'm a Medicare for all guy, and I have been for a long time. And I've actually talked with healthcare economists about this, and what they say is that it just doesn't make sense to them to have a private insurance delivery model because private insurance is always going to be incentivized to deny care in order to increase profits. It just doesn't make any sense. At the same time, we have a situation in this country where everybody is one diagnosis away from bankruptcy, or everybody who doesn't have perfect insurance is one diagnosis away from bankruptcy. That doesn't make any sense to
No.
have that kind of situation like hanging over all of our heads. But also because of that, and this applies even to people who are, middle upper class, people are locked in their jobs because healthcare is so expensive. My wife and I just talked about this the other day. We were talking about her job, what her job options are, and she said, "Oh, but my job provides our family's healthcare, and we've got two small kids." And so if we can give everybody a baseline of insurance coverage, through a Medicare for all type government funded insurance pool, then that basically unlocks that job lock that people are experiencing because they're not going to be locked into their job because they're concerned about
No.
not being able to get healthcare or paying too much for healthcare, like on the public exchanges. Um, and you're starting to see more and more Democrats talk about this because even since the Affordable Care Act passed, which was designed and is designed to keep healthcare costs lower, we've still seen healthcare costs go up.
It did not. That was not effective in that area.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, I mean, it's
So,
just, I liked Obama. Don't get me wrong, but I mean
yeah.
that did not work out as they thought it did. Thought
And
it would.
well, and if you remember during that whole time, like when they were negotiating that, there was a big debate about should we have a public option? Should we allow anybody to enroll in Medicare
Right.
who wants to? And that got shot down, but that would have been a hugely successful policy that would have kept healthcare costs lower because it would have reined in the private market from continuing to raise healthcare premiums.
Yeah, and then there's the pharmaceutical companies problem with their astronomical costs and,
Yeah,
and, and charges and so on and so forth. Yeah. So like,
yeah,
and I just wanted to point out to people that because I'm not sure people put this together. A lot of people do. Is that we are as taxpayers we pay Congress's the senators' salaries, which includes health care for them. We're literally paying for their health care, and they will not provide it for us. That's
yep,
nuts. I'm
yep.
sorry. That is absolutely unacceptable. Okay.
Well, and yeah, if healthcare was like affordable, I mean, I think back like in the 90s, healthcare wasn't, I mean, it was starting to become an issue. You remember in like 1994 with
Mhm.
Hillary Care and things like that, you know, but healthcare was a lot more like affordable
Oh, 100%.
back then. And again, as in so many areas of life, we've seen the cost just kind of astronomically go up. Um, and so we need policy solutions to that because again, we're going to a place where the middle class is getting like squeezed so much that we're either going to have a permanent underclass with, kind of a bunch of wealthy people hoarding all the cash above us.
Yeah, you'll see the wealth gap just increase exponentially. No, I
Yeah.
remember growing up, I mean, I was born in the very end of 1969, so let's just say 70. So 70 through 80, I was through my, up to 10 years old. 10 years old in 1980, 20 in 1990. So in my formative years in the 80s, my parents had health insurance, and my parents were smack dab in the middle of the middle class. We weren't high, we weren't low, we were fine. Okay. They had insurance for the big stuff. All the doctor's appointments, kids get sick a lot, right? From me and my sister, were all paid for out of pocket and it never broke them. All of a sudden, it's just everything's outrageously expensive. And it's in part, I think, it seems like, because insurance companies have to now pay for everything. And that's in part because of the ACA. It was in part an insurance mandate. It's an insurance-based healthcare system is not efficient. No matter how you slice it and dice it, it is not a good idea. There's way too many middleman administrative costs that do not need to be there. Healthcare services is a simple transaction like anything else. A doctor provides you with a service, you pay them. That's it. It's not complicated. Beyond, I mean, there are other things on the fringes. Technology is advancing, it's very expensive. People are living longer. There are a lot of other variables, but these are ancillary on the side compared to a lot of the other. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and yeah, there's a lot of problems, I think, with like the healthcare industry that are like driving costs up. And you pinpointed one of them is that, there people aren't cognizant of the costs of what they're paying. They people who have insurance is like just go to the doctor and most of it's covered and they don't need to worry about like what it actually costs. And that's something that largely has not been able to be addressed. But if we do have a single payer health system or even a public option, that's going to start to rein the cost down because Medicare can, there's so many people on Medicare, they can kind of negotiate whatever prices they want.
Yeah, no, for sure. And another, like, there's so many different benefits, advantages of a single payer type system. First of all, it would take the burden of healthcare costs off of all businesses. Like, all of us, you don't have to provide healthcare for your employees in order to attract the better workers or whatever, or anybody for that matter. Yeah. And so that would be a massive financial benefit for corporations who probably spend bajillions of dollars on healthcare costs for their employees. Yeah. So the bigger they are. Yeah. And also it would be advantageous in the sense of like if you want a productive workforce, they need to be healthy. Okay. And if you start denying people healthcare because they can't afford it, job production is going to go down. And I hate to think of people as merely these sort of like cogs, but I mean, economically speaking, that is absolutely accurate. So it would benefit companies and bigger corporations if they had a healthy workforce. Right?
Yeah. Totally.
Okay.
Totally.
So why are they
it totally would. And you know what? I think that there are probably folks out there who do want to work, who have chronic healthcare conditions, and they're just not able to because they're not able to get the standard of care that they need to in order to function at like a full-time job. So, I mean, I hear what you're saying. You don't want to kind of treat human beings just like dollars and cents. And I think that's one of the things that is kind of like problematic in our economy. But it is true that there probably are a bunch of people out there who would love to get out of the house more, love to work more, love to contribute more, but they're just not able to because of the healthcare situation. And it just doesn't make any sense.
Right. It does. It really doesn't. Like it's a legitimate absurdity to consider our health. It's ridiculous, especially as rich as this country is. To like kind of paraphrase Bernie Sanders. I mean, oh my God, we have more wealth than like almost the entire world put together, and like we don't offer our citizens health care. That's unbelievable to me.
It is.
Okay. Well, I would like to talk a little bit about the environment. We don't have to go as deep as like having another show, but I mean, obviously the environment, climate change, big issues right now. Even though I know Trump thinks it's a hoax, he thinks everything's a hoax.
Yeah, well, I mean, so what's important to point out there, just kind of like politically with Trump, is that and this has been widely reported, that during the presidential campaign, Trump met with a bunch of oil executives and said that if you contribute $1 billion to my reelection effort through various PACs and whatnot, then I will help you out once I get into office. And he's largely done that. He's trying to kill solar and wind projects. There
Mhm.
was just another article in the New York Times about it today, and he's trying to pump up oil, and he's trying to do it really without even input from the oil industry. I think that was one of his unspoken motivations for going into Venezuela.
Right.
And then he turns around and goes and talks to Exxon, and they're like, I don't know, like we've invested in Venezuela a few times and gotten ripped off. So there needs to be political changes there. We're not looking to invest right away. And Trump gets upset about it. That's literally the kind of chaos that we're dealing with in terms of like, a national energy strategy. And I put that in quotes because it really isn't a strategy. It's just kind of Trump lurching from one idea to the next. When it comes to the environment and energy, I mean, I think the two are very related, but
Yeah.
renewable energy is just the way to go.
Right.
It just is the way. It's a win-win-win for everybody. It's way more reliable than traditional fossil fuels. It's clean. You don't need to smell a bunch of gross carbon, coming from your vehicle or coming from your neighbor's house or whatever, coming from the factory down the street. There are benefits to rural America because farmers can get um, additional value out of their land if they put solar or wind projects on their land, and in
Mhm.
many cases can still use their land for agricultural purposes. Even if there's solar panels on their land, they can
Yeah.
still grow some limited crops. So it's just a boon for rural America. It's going to massively lower all of our energy costs and make life more affordable for consumers, and it's great for the environment too. And it's gonna deliver a lot more energy. Energy is going to be a lot more abundant, and if we invest in it, like I said now, then our kids are going to have to, or they're going to be paying less than you know or way less than us for energy. So, when it comes to like talking about the environment, protecting the environment, renewable energy is just, that's just the way to go, in my opinion.
It is the way to go, and the reason is in the title, renewable. If it's not renewable, it's unsustainable. That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, why why would you want an unsustainable energy
Yeah.
source? It doesn't make
Well,
any sense. Again, it doesn't make any
exactly.
sense.
Yeah,
Even if there was no
exactly.
climate change, even if fossil fuels were still unsustainable but weren't as polluting as they are actually, you would still want renewable energy. Why? Because it's renewable.
Yeah, it comes from the sun, it comes from the wind, and we're not
Those
going to
aren't
run
going
out of
away.
those things.
Right.
If we do, we got bigger
Yeah,
problems,
yeah.
but
So
we're not
any
we're
any
not going to run
any
out of
energy
those things.
solution is over if the sun and
Yeah,
the wind go away. Yes.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, and you know what? Like what I always tell people too is I tell people is like, have you ever generated power like with like solar or wind? I mean, it's a lot easier to get kind of like solar panels and external batteries. I actually have an external battery and some solar panels right over there for just kind of doing stuff
Right.
outdoors, like camping.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so I always ask people, have you actually like generated energy from solar? And some people say yes, a lot of people say no. But I tell you, like when I'm out, I like to take my kids camping and stuff like that, like during the summer. It is cool. I mean,
It
it is just, it's cool. It's like, oh, I'm out of energy. I need to fire up like a laptop or something like that. Like, let me set the panels out for the morning, and we'll go on a hike or something like that and come back and I got energy. I mean, it's just cool. It's innovation at work, and it's just a
is
great
cool. It is cool. You're
it's
right.
just a great
Yeah.
like personal autonomy kind of thing. It's like I can get you know whatever. I can get a battery and some solar panels. I could put solar panels on my house. I could subscribe to a community solar installation that's on the outskirts of town. Whatever it is, I am self-sustaining. It's really just kind of a personal responsibility thing. I don't need to rely on, you know, on other people to sell me energy because I can take care of it myself.
Yeah.
And that's what America is all about. Everybody in America, it's like it's a personal freedom thing. It just feels good to do.
No, independence and liberty are great things.
Yeah.
Of course they
Yeah.
are.
Yeah. Yeah.
So something we don't want to get rid of. But okay, very cool. So let's go more specific to your campaign route here. Of course, you have to go through the primaries first, right?
Yes.
Talk about that in you said there are 10 people on the ballot?
10 people on the ballot, yes. For
Obviously.
the primary, for the Democratic Party primary. Yeah. And so there are 2 Congress people running, Raja Krishnamurthy and Robin Kelly. There is Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton, and they're taking up a lot of space. But when I go out and talk to people, people are just kind of, for the same reason that I got in this race, a little bit fed up with kind of the Democratic Party establishment, the folks that have already been around and looking for somebody new. And so that was another reason why I got in this race. The more that I talked to people, the more they're like, I'm sick of the Democrats who have been in office. A lot of people blame them for the state of the country right now, the fact that Trump got reelected. A lot of people look at them, they see folks who are aging out, who are at retirement or over retirement age and still seeking higher office. And they're like, we need something new. And so what I tell people is that I'm a new style Democrat. And I say that because of what I said at the top of the show, David, is that I looked at the Democratic Party and how they were responding to Trump, and the issue that I had was that they weren't. And so
Right.
I think the Democrats need to be a lot more aggressive with pushing a progressive economic agenda that works for 99% of us, not trying to kind of straddle this line where it's like, I'm going to try to please everybody. It's like, no, we need an agenda that works for young people, working families, working people, regular households, like we once had in this country, and like in the past 40 years, we've steadily moved away from. So that is ultimately the main reason why I am in this race. And yes, you mentioned the primary. It is March 17th. So
Yeah.
we are a little bit less than 6 weeks away. And I'm asking for people's vote because I think that we need a new generation of leadership. I think we need a generation of leadership that is focused on regular people. And I think we need leaders who are focused on actually getting things done. We've seen folks hang out in Congress, in the Senate for years and years and years. And they get reelected. And it's really not clear to me like what their accomplishments are. I think that we need a new movement of Democrats because there's a lot of economic and democratic reform that needs to happen. And it's the work of a generation, a new generation of Democrats. Think of things like nullifying Citizens United and addressing corporate spending in elections, addressing and abolishing the Electoral College, democratic reforms like ranked choice voting and term limits, things that are going to reinvigorate both our economy and our democracy. These are big projects. These are not projects that, an older generation can take on and see through. These are projects that a younger generation need to take on. And so that's why I'm in this race, because I want to think big. And these are projects that are the work of my generation for the benefit of my children's generation.
Yeah, no, that's great. Well said. Yeah, I just actually had a couple gentlemen on from, I don't know if you heard of Fair Vote, Illinois.
Yeah,
They're a
I
ranked
saw that.
choice
Yeah.
voting organization.
Yeah.
They go around the state to try to implement it. And I'm a big fan of ranked choice voting. Huge. ballot access, all the equal ballot access, because that's all rigged too. So
Yeah. That was quite the chore. That was a lot of my fall was just getting access to the ballot. Um, and also just, if I could just add to the list too, public financing of elections. It's like it just doesn't make sense for folks to kind of like be in public life and spend half their time fundraising and have these massive war chests, but not really be doing anything to solve the country's problems because they're spending all their time
I agree with
fundraising.
that. Like especially, definitely at the local and county and state level, and well, all levels. Like if you're running for an office, the public the area you're running for, like gives you a certain amount of money and an equal amount for each person running. You don't get to use your own money because that just rigs everything.
Yep.
Because you have billionaires and millionaires or $100,000 heirs who are in there, and then go at it. You spend your money how you want in your campaign. That's where the good choices versus bad choices are going to be shown. How responsible are you with it, that kind of thing. How creative are you with it, that kind of thing. And no, I agree with that 100%. Like we need to get private money out of politics, perhaps entirely. I'm only saying perhaps because I would have to think about it. But yeah, I mean, it's just the lobbying at the federal level is disgusting. It's ridiculous. It rigs a
Yeah.
lot of things, and everybody's, there are polls that have been taken concerning, like the general public's amount of people in the general public, what they think about something and how many times Congress votes in that same manner. And it's utterly disproportionate. Utterly disproportionate.
We end up with situations where 70% of the public supports a certain policy like campaign finance reform and overturn Citizens United or reasonable gun regulation, yet it can't happen because the opponents of those policies flood Congress with political donations.
Right.
And so we don't, both Republicans and Democrats. And so we end up in a situation where Congress really isn't responsive to everyday people like you and me.
No, it's completely true. Yeah. Okay, cool. Is there anything you wanted to plug personally concerning your campaign? I don't want to keep you too terribly long.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's been great to be here. So if folks are interested, and I hope you like what you heard tonight, check out my campaign website. It's dean4il.com. That's Dean number 4il.com. If you like what you heard tonight, please pass along a $5 or $10 donation, kind of on that last point that David and I were talking about. We can normalize giving $5 or $10 to politicians who are saying the things that we want to hear, who are favoring, everyday working families and young people. That's how we send politicians to Washington who are going to be responsive to everyday people and not wealthy people and corporations. Also, check me out on the social networks. You can find my accounts under the handle Dean4il. And there I'm trying to display the kind of more aggressive political approach that I think the Democrats need to take. That's a hard thing to describe in even a 30-minute YouTube show. So check out my presence on the social networks and follow along.
All right. Sounds very cool. Thank you. I just want to give a shout out to Alexandria Keating Sofiakis, who's a friend of mine and probably the most constant viewer of the show. Hello. She said, just got out of classes. Hope everyone is doing well. Also 100% on healthcare. Okay. So she enjoyed that part of our discussion. And she says, good luck, Jonathan.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Real quick, I wanted to ask you, how many signatures did you need to get on the ballot?
So for a statewide race, you need to submit 5,000 valid signatures, but you can submit no more than 10,000 signatures. So,
and you have to double your count, the required amount, because your competitors will send their wire dogs on you and go, oh, there's no dot over that I. You're going to cross out that name,
Yeah. So it was a lot of signatures.
Johnson or Johnston? I'm not sure. Cross it out. Okay.
I turned in just shy of 8,000 and I was not challenged. So
that's nice.
Could I be challenged in another race with just 8,000? Like, I don't know, but in this one I wasn't. So I'm on the ballot.
One of the things, and this is not an attempt to discredit, Democratic candidates nor Republicans, but like just the unfairness of ballot access. If you were running under a third party, say Libertarian or Green Party, you would probably need closer to 25 to 30,000 at a minimum,
Yeah.
and then you would have to double that. That's just stupid. Okay,
It
sorry,
does
that
make
is so
sense.
offensive to me.
It does make sense. Well, in Illinois too has some of the highest signature thresholds
It's
in the
unbelievable.
country. When I was out collecting signatures, I bumped into someone. He said, "You know how many signatures it takes to get on the ballot to run for Senate in New Hampshire? 15." So it's like all you got to do is go down your street and come up the other side of
Oh,
your street. and you probably
15,
got
just one, not 15,000.
15.
1-5.
1-5, yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, there are places like that in the country. I also know, like on the other side of it, in Tennessee, there are some districts where, like, as a third party candidate or independent, you need 50,000 signatures, and there aren't even 50,000 people in the district. I'm not kidding. I mean,
Yeah.
it's blatantly rigged, folks. Anyway, okay, that's enough of my rant on that. I love the opportunities I love democracy, and you need more choices. I'm sorry, we do.
Yeah, we do.
Within each party, for sure. I'm not asking to get
Yeah.
rid of the duopoly. I'm just saying we need more choices.
Yeah.
So, Jonathan Deaton, thank you so much for coming on the show. Appreciate it, and let's get you back on, maybe closer to the primary. And again, we have a couple other things to discuss, and we can talk about that. I know you have a business, you're a lawyer, you're a husband and a father, you're running for office, you're a busy guy. So I don't want to pester you too much, but I'll be in touch for sure. Cool.
That sounds great. It's been great to be here. Thanks so much, David.
Thank you, Jonathan Dean. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to another episode of Let's Talk Lake County. I'm your host, David Rich. Till next time, keep talking. Hold on a second, Jonathan.